Normally the SCPs that we tend to cover are scary. I'm talking I don't ever want to see that thing or talk about it ever again scary. Yet today I feel the SCP we're about to discuss is actually the furthest thing from scary. In fact, it's almost a joke of sorts. With that being said, what this SCP is allegedly capable of, well, that's a whole different story. I don't understand it, and it seems no one really does. That's where the fear is, in the unknown. What's going down, guys? Welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions. I'm your host, Jared Bronstein, and today we'll be answering the question, what if SCP-513 was real? Before we get into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell icon, and of course, let us know in the comments below which other SCPs we need to cover. As always, I'll be replying to some of your comments from a previous video at the end of this one, so be sure to stick around for that, but for now, let's roll into it. So what is SCP-513? Well, it's a rusty old bell. See, I told you guys, this one isn't scary in the slightest. It's just a bell. Who cares? But again, it's not the SCP itself that is scary, but what it's allegedly capable of. The badly corroded hunk of metal has no visible marks or engravings due to its poor condition. Attempts by the SCP to remove the rust chemically and mechanically have also been unsuccessful, and when the bell was found, a note was attached. The note read, "You've seen it, now he could hear you. You've touched it, now he could see you. Never ring it. If you hear it, he can touch you." The bell's clapper was also heavily taped to the inside of the bell, obviously to stop it from ringing. So it's clear that ringing this bell is what activates it, for lack of a better word, and is the only way this SCP can be effective. Due to this, SCP-513 is contained in a 1 cubic meter block of gelatin, which is locked in a soundproof, climate-controlled cell. The SCP Foundation inspects the gelatin cube daily to make sure it is fully intact and not degrading by any means. If for whatever reason the cube has any cuts, tears, spills, or rips, SCP-513 is to then be removed from the cube and placed in another cube surgically placed by deaf SCP employees. So as you can see, it's clear that hearing this SCP will lead to a bad series of events. And now let's explore those events. Upon hearing any noise produced by SCP-513, you will start experiencing severe anxiety. Those exposed to said sound have reported feelings of being watched by an unseen entity and having an elevated heart rate and blood pressure. Approximately an hour after first hearing the sound, victims will start to catch a glimpse of SCP-513-1 when opening doors, walking by mirrors, even turning their heads. Really, any action that would suddenly change your perception is when victims tend to get a glimpse of this creature. Upon being seen, SCP-513-1 reportedly turns and runs away, ultimately disappearing without a trace. It's also been determined this creature is invisible to those who haven't been exposed to the sounds of SCP-513. Sightings of this creature tend to reoccur every 14 to 237 minutes. The victims who are being stalked end up becoming extremely sleep deprived as they can sense when SCP-513-1 is in their presence and see it. Those capable of falling asleep before this creature's appearance report being physically attacked by it. Upon waking up, they see the creature run away as per usual. Aside from the sleep deprivation, victims also tend to suffer from paranoia, aggression, hypervigilance, and depression. Every person who has fallen victim to this SCP, with the exception of one, have committed suicide. Descriptions of SCP-513-1's appearance are unreliable due to the fact that victims are sleep deprived, physically and mentally exhausted. However, what has been consistent across all accounts is that this creature seems to be a tall, thin, lanky humanoid with large hands. So now you could probably see why I was saying that SCP-513 itself isn't scary, but what it's capable of certainly is. In a nutshell, it's a bell that can drive people to suicide if they hear it ring. So now that we know what it is, what happens if it's real? Fortunately for us, not all that much. Unlike a lot of other SCPs that we've covered, this thing can't move. It's an object that only affects those who hear it. And if the SCP were able to contain it in a soundproof area, then it wouldn't be a danger to anyone at all. In fact, we wouldn't even know of its existence. However, it's unclear where the bell came from in the first place, how long it's been around, and what its original purpose was. If this was the Liberty Bell or Big Ben in London, then it would affect millions of people before eventually being stopped. But if it's just a bell that was made and somehow has the ability to summon this evil entity that stalks victims to the point of suicide, well, I mean, it's still messed up, but it wouldn't have an effect on a global scale the way we think it would. But to stop this SCP, someone would have needed to survive and not commit suicide, which was the case with one victim. No information on that victim has been released, but essentially if this SCP were real, it probably wouldn't kill that many people. After the first few deaths and the consistencies with people saying they fear some unknown and unseen creature, we'd eventually put 2 and 2 together and realize the bell has some sort of effect over people. Is it an actual creature they see, or are they just mentally so distraught that their mind is starting to see things and hallucinate? Most likely the latter. The why would be the toughest part. Try and understand how the sound of a bell can drive someone to a point that they go absolutely crazy. That answer we may never find, but eventually we would either destroy the bell, and if it's deemed indestructible, just keep it in a soundproof box, or even throw it to the bottom of the ocean. But I have a hard time believing we would come across such an interesting find and then toss it in the ocean as a way to get rid of the problem. We'd want to figure out what it is about the sound the bell makes that drives people insane. And if it actually did somehow summon this evil creature known as SCP-513-1, then what does that mean? Is this bell some sort of summoning device that can bring aliens or evil spirits into the real world? Again, a lot of question marks and a lot of time and money spent trying to understand and make sense of the powers this rusty bell apparently has. And considering how it's a cowbell, well, I don't think it can make noises that would travel too far either. So the idea that this could have been the Liberty Bell or Big Ben simply goes out the window. This bell is tiny, so even if it were real, it wouldn't be much of a danger considering how it's probably the size of my hand. So to wrap up, if SCP-513 were real, what would happen? Well, a few people would die. We'd eventually realize it's this bell that somehow drives people to suicide, or possibly awakens some sort of evil spirit that haunts those who hear the bells ring. We'd study it and try to understand it, then lock it away for good so it can't hurt anyone else. Eventually, Hollywood would make a horrible movie based on the series of events that took place regarding this SCP, and it would most likely flop. It'd be one of those movies you watch on Netflix for a cheap scare and then never think about again. And the story of SCP-513 would be lost and forgotten forever, until it somehow was found again and released to wreak havoc once more. And if we're lucky, we may even get a sequel to that Hollywood flick. Alright guys, before we end this one, we gotta reply to some comments from the video. What if SCP-053 was real? JADB said, what if the Lovecraftian universe merged with the SCP universe? That'd be interesting. It'd be very interesting. It'd be like two worlds colliding, like Star Trek and Star Wars just coming together, and it'd just be complete chaos, because like, who is the strongest one? Mike Campbell said, it's not her fault, she's a sweet girl. I'm not blaming her. I think she is a sweet girl. It's just, she was born into that life. What could she do? Anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap this one up. I've been your host, Jared Bronstein. You guys have been watching Life's Biggest Questions. Make sure to share this with an SCP fan, and of course, let us know in the comments down below some other SCPs you'd like us to cover. Hit that subscribe button and that bell icon to never miss a video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.